Hey everybody, welcome back. This time around we're going to go ahead and actually start messing with the motor tube and some of the rings around it. There's certain steps, specific steps we have to take in a row to make sure that we fit everything inside this big case properly without missing anything. We can't just put all the rings on this at the same time and then suddenly, think it'll be easy to actually put all the epoxy where it needs to go. So I'll walk us through those steps. The first thing that has to happen is I am measuring 1/2 inch from the bottom, 1/2 inch from the top of this motor tube. And it's hard to see, but I've put little dots, to kind of mark where that's going to be. And then today I'm going to be starting to use my air epoxy. So there's 2 containers here. This is part A, and there's a part B. It's a 1-to-1 epoxy. It's not that hard to use. You mix it together for 1 to 2 minutes. Make sure that there's no streaking. Everything is mixed properly. Rub the edges and the bottoms of whatever container you're doing that in. You can mix by volume or weight. I'm gonna go by weight. I've run into some issues with volume before where it's been a hair off. So anyway, that's what we're gonna be using for this. Has remarkably good tensile strength and better heat properties than some of the other epoxy I've used. So anyway, so what I'm going to do is once I mix that, I'm going to position this just right, and I'm going to put a good thick fillet of epoxy around this on the top and on the bottom here. And for tonight, that's all I'm going to do. There's going to be more in the video, of course, but that will be the first part of the video. All right, so the next thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna put this inside the actual motor tube here. However, I realized that before I do that, I actually have to put in some of the rail buttons. And the reason is that the rail buttons I'm using use a T-nut like that on the inside. And if I actually wanna be able to install that with some relative degree of ease, I at least have to put the middle rail button in first. So let me show you what I've been doing here. And so I've been measuring out and making sure that my line is straight for all 3 rail buttons. I'm gonna go ahead and drill the hole for each one But the middle one is the one that we for sure have to actually install tonight, okay? I don't want to install the bottom one yet because it'll make it a heck of a lot harder to put in my middle centering ring over there when that comes time, okay? So bear with me, we're gonna do some drilling first, and then if we have time tonight, we're still gonna do the epoxy work for this guy, okay? At least the first half of the epoxy work, where I'm gonna epoxy the inside of the tube, insert this, that'll create the fillet on the bottom side, okay? And tomorrow what we'll do is we'll mix some air epoxy and just pour it down in there, and I'll kind of rotate the tube a little so that it gets nice and flush all around the sides, okay? When I epoxy this in, the issue that I'm going to run into is that because of the order of epoxying the centering rings I have to go in, I have to just do this whole tube just with the first one, okay? I can't epoxy in a second ring at this time, okay? So what I'm going to have to do is I am going to have to actually take the bottom centering ring, which is the one it most certainly has to line up with, and there's a little lip on the inside that you can see right about there. And what I'm gonna do is you can see the tape, I'm gonna position this exactly where I want it to be, okay? And I'm gonna tape it in nice and firm, and it needs to show up right at the tail edge of where the fins are gonna be, where they end at the bottom. And I'm gonna slide this all the way down, and I'm gonna make it rest right there, okay? This side here will not be epoxied in, it'll just be taped for now, while this side dries with the epoxy, okay? Once it's all set by tomorrow morning, I can take this part off, this will just be floating, and that's when I'll manage with the middle ring, and then from there, it'll be another video where we'll do all the fins and everything like that, and really the last step of the whole bottom is putting this on. Well, now we're done. It looks like I forgot to actually film it while I was putting it in there, but it is what it is. So now you'll see that that is down inside, and you have the top ring there, and it is epoxied on the underside of that ring, okay? Tomorrow what I'll do is I'll go in with some air epoxy and I'll pour in there and make sure that it's all epoxied up around the edges too, okay? I used this tape here as just a guide because, as you can see, When we were looking in there, it cast a shadow through the tube and it helped me figure out where to draw the epoxy. And then down here, you'll see what I was talking about, where this is taped on, and the motor tube is connected to this little lip right here. And what I did was I was able to kind of pull it in there and make sure that it's real snug, okay? And that's just resting, so it actually epoxies and settles into place. All right, there we go. All right, so it's the next day and our drying from last night has finally settled. So here, let's take a look and see what we got. All right, now you can see where the fillet is actually all in and around the inside there. Looking good and strong. You can see our rail button there. That's epoxied in as well. Now, one thing I'll mention is that the screw that goes in for this rail button, okay, and actually all of them, is pretty long. You can see that it goes in there and sticks out past that T-nut in there, okay? And what I need to do is I went ahead and I got a similar threaded screw to fit, but one that is actually just small enough so when I put it in the top part of this tube here, it doesn't stick out and snag on any of our recovery line, okay? So it'll just fit flush on that side.
Look at the orange plate already at the top. It's baby.
I see. All right, let's go through the hardware store. Woo. What I'm gonna do now is I'm going to take a good bit of air epoxy here. I'm gonna mix it all up and I'm going to pour it inside. I'm gonna stand this tube up and I'm gonna pour it inside on the top part of the centering ring and make sure that I go down there with my hand and kind of swipe it up on the walls. And so it'll create a nice fillet on the centering ring and the inside walls of the rocket itself, okay? That'll create the final fillet on that top centering ring that's connected to the outer shell, okay? And so it's got 2 on the inner shell and it'll have 2 on the outer part of the shell, and that'll be quite strong. So again, that's just one of 3 of our centering rings, but the top one especially has to be able to take that initial yoink from the recovery system. Now, of course, it's all connected, so we're gonna bank on all of that having some kind of collective strength. On top of that, what we're going to do today is we have 2 more rail buttons to install. However, one of them is near the very bottom, okay? And I'm only going to install that after I've put the fins in and everything, and that middle centering ring. If I put it in before I do the middle centering ring, it'll be really hard. I wouldn't really be able to slide that centering ring down past it. So that one is just a standard one, right? These are 15/15s. You can see it has a T-nut there. The screw is threaded, goes through it, okay? Just like the one that's in the middle already. However, for the top one, I went to the local hardware store, like I said before, and I got a similar threaded but shorter screw. That way it's nice and flush, because that section is where our recovery gear is going to be, and I don't want extra screw length in there potentially messing with or catching on anything, okay? So that one will go right there. We will install that one today as well. We've got the time and the epoxy, why not? Naomi was gonna help me with putting these buttons on, but by the time I got around to asking her to help me, she was busy playing games with Mom, so better luck next time. All right, well, that's it for now, everybody. Thanks for joining, and see you in the next video. Bye.